first of all, who won?
I won the Ovessa Star Tau.
Okay, and how exactly did you win?
Well, I got a little lucky. I ended up killing his Fortune Seer really early in the game with a really, clutch combat, and then he just kind of ran out of steam after turn 3, and it was about him staying alive. And if the game had ended on 5 or even 6, he would have. I think he would have won, right, even on 6, and then just kept going, and I ended up wiping out his last couple of models.
So even though he lost the majority of his Seer Council early to some exceptional dice rolling on your part.
And I rolled 3 1s for the saves, and then 3 more 1s for the reset, and then I also failed the Lookout Sir on a 1, so it was 7 1s in a row. It's pretty fantastic.
Well, would you say that maybe his dice are cooked? Oh, see what I did there?
Oh, you're so
This guy.
All right. So do you think that was the most pivotal part of the game for you?
Yeah, getting rid of that early is really important. Fortune and everything. Getting rid of his psychics in general. It also was First Blood, which we were playing Nova Mission 7, so First Blood was a point. It put me up on kill points early, and took away his Fearless also, which is a big deal. Yeah.
All right. Well, so this was a rematch from the Nova Open.
Yep.
Match round 7 as well. So you guys played the same mission, same armies.
Yep.
How did that game go?
He didn't get Fortune that game, and then the game only went to 5. But I killed the Seer Council a lot earlier because he didn't have Fortune, and I had another pretty clutch combat actually where Ovessa made a couple of 5-up saves because he failed his Nova charge, and I still managed to kill a Wraith Knight in combat that had like 2 or 3 wounds left. So yeah.
So what was the most pivotal part for you, Matt, in pulling a game that seems like you kind of were getting steamrolled early into such a tight game that you had it won on 5 and 6? Had the Dice Gods cooperated with you like they did at BFS?
Sure, yeah. The dice were unfortunate for that combat. I think that I had the numbers on it, and it would have been a good chance to tie up and pull out and put myself in a good position. I think Justin played a great game the whole time, but I think it was also a mistake to try to get just one 5-man squad of warriors by lining up all the recruit in a place that I could get to them easily without having any kind of challenge to them. So he set up all of his troops in places that I could get in turn 2, despite the fact that I had lost most of my army. So I was able to take out the Crisis Suit with the Wraith Knight. I was able to take out the Recruit with the Wraith Knight. I was able to take out the other Recruit squad and a Riptide with whatever was left of the Council, which was not much and was not Fortune. And the other suits, or the other jet bikes, were able to take out the last suit. So it was me trying to take advantage of mistakes. But my big primary mistake in the beginning was being too aggressive too early. Having the bottom of the turn and having models that can be quick like that, the advantage to me is to wait. It was a good move, I think, initially to split your Riptide off from the rest of it, so it couldn't get twin linked and ignore cover and all that. Yeah. But there was no rush to do that.
Yeah, and seeing what you lost.
Right, the risk on that.
You lost like 2/3 of the Seer Council, including one of your critical Farseers.
Right. Granted, that was unlikely to happen, but it still was a risk that's possible.
So what was the most tactically sound part of Justin's game?
I think his constant move to the middle was very good because it allowed all of his smart missile systems to have range on everything. So knowing that he needed to kill off my troops, yet still needed to focus on the things in the middle that could kill him, he put himself in a central position to get range, even though I had line of sight blocking on all of the troop units that I had hiding around the table. So the push to the middle, I think, was a good play.
And what would you say was the most tactical part of DeFranza's game?
I think splitting off the way they did, and even after he lost a lot of his council, he was able to focus on the troops. He played the mission really well, and that almost cost me the game. Like he said, if this was a tournament game, I probably would have lost because turn 5 and turn 6 he had the game won. So yeah, just playing to the mission and understanding that in 40K it's not just big smashing models versus big smashing models. You can also pick apart troops, and especially both of our lists have really, really vulnerable troop units. So it's really easy to clean those up and secure a mission win. You know?
All right. That makes sense. Now, what is the biggest thing you would do differently in this game? Had this game played out the way it did, what was the one thing you wish you didn't do, Justin?
I think what he said about the Kroot is right. I mean, it was a novel idea, but given the fact that most of his troops are jet bikes and they can just go over the Kroot, it really wasn't worth it at that point. I should have just brought them on like a side, or just rolled for the outflank like normal. But not what I did with the Kroot. Basically, I would have taken that back. The single crisis suits he spread out in a way that was really hard for me to hide them. So even though I deep strike them in order to hopefully throw them off, because all my troops came in at once, it was really hard to try to keep my troops alive.
No, and besides being as aggressive as you were with the Seer Council, which you already said was your biggest fault, what do you think was frankly the next biggest fault that you had that cost you the game, that you could have maybe salvaged it a little bit better for turn 7? Was there anything different you could have done that you wish you did after you decided not to?
I know that this might be a cop-out on it, but that first turn was definitely it. Because if I do that turn 2, then my turn 6 is my turn 7.
Yeah.
Even
just
with
push everything
even
back
with the
in
back
turn.
rolls, right? So
Yeah.
that would just buy me another turn. Again, there's no rush for me. There's no urgency to do that.
Yeah.
And again, that would have gotten me turn 6 on turn 7, in which case I would have won the game.
No, there is one part of the game where we after you made your moves and appropriate moves, we stopped the game for a discussion, just as between the three of us and Kevin McNally. We stopped and we discussed the tactics behind a particular move, and that was when your Wraith Knight, instead of came out from behind the ruins after killing the crisis suit, and instead shot into his 3-man crisis suit unit, which really wasn't a threat nor doing anything, and it was his last scoring unit. And you were able to really dictate, like he couldn't leave his deployment zone with that, and he couldn't leave the protection of his army, so you knew exactly where they were going to go. And you were able to contest that objective with the swooping hawks. Why did you go after that 3-man crisis suit unit instead of putting the shots into his Riptide that was not Ovessa? Hope for a distort and potentially a charge to tie him up so that your Seer Council would stay alive longer.
Sure.
And do you think that would have been a better play? In hindsight.
Sure. Even in hindsight, what I want to say is that the test and the chance to kill off this crisis suit team, he had nothing to go back and deny that unit, that objective in his backfield, which I could reach faster than he could. So had that suit or two died or it broke off the table, the Hawks would have been engaged other places, and if you consider turn 7, I would have had the objective on that turn. So there's, I think it still was the right move to make, and although I do have to admit that I did forget that the Avesta Star didn't do Stubborn, it did Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
So if it hadn't done Stubborn and I was able to cause enough wounds to break it, it would have been a big deal. But he only had 4 wounds left, and I think the numbers on whether or not the Avesta Star could have taken those 4 wounds is probable. So even if it broke, even if I did a lot of wounds to him and took down one Riptide, and he still killed off the Wraith Knight, I wouldn't have been able to break him or cut him off the table anyway.
Well, we'll have to do some math hammer on that a little later, because that's a really tight assumption. Because remember, Ovessa's only weapon skill 1.
Right.
So even though Ovessa is very punchy, it still hits on 5s.
Yeah, well, the way this guy's rolling didn't matter. He was hitting 2 with
That
it.
is true. His whole unit except Farsight and the commander actually hit on 5s anyway, because a Wraith Knight is weapon skill 5, or weapon skill 4 actually, you're correct. It's initiative 5.
And they were
Never
Monster
mind.
Hunters, so they would have rerolled the wound against the enemy.
They would have indeed had to reroll the wounds. And I guess, yeah, with his hot rolling, you didn't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
But that was one thing that we did stop and talk about the tactical feasibility of. And I think, especially in hindsight, looking at it, I actually think that was a better play overall. Because as the footage will show, the Ovessa Star then went in and bowed out his Burst Tide. Which, it was because they were able to bow out his Burst Tide that his Burst Tide was able to essentially allow him to take down both your Wraith Knights in a turn. Because then he had the full power of the Ovessa Star by swapping the Ion to the Burst Tide. So that was very big. Is there any other comments you guys have about the game?
No, it's a good game.
Good game. Is there any other changes that you know, in the particular lists that just aren't really sitting well with you, Justin? I mean, DeFranza has since gone to a tournament with his Seer Council. He's made a few slight adjustments. He always, you know, got to adjust to the meta a little bit. I know I've been testing with adjustments for the particular meta favoring Space Marines. Is there anything in particular that you really wish you had, especially in this particular instance, you really wish you had that you've been thinking about potentially? Or is it just kind of running the way you want and it's still running real smooth?
Well, this list in particular is running the way I want it to, because the 2 ion cannon riptides with their loadouts really support the Ovessa Star really well. It's been hard for me to determine what I'm going to swap out for those when I go to tournaments where, like, I'm going to Du Bois in November, so I have to swap the riptides out for comp. So I gotta, you know, I can only take 2 riptides, so I have to decide what I'm going to take. There's some things I've been testing out with that, but no, I mean, if I was just going to go to another 1850 tournament tomorrow, I'd probably just run this list right now, just because it is so solid. And even with Grav, majority armor save in the unit for the Ovessa Star is 4, so even with Grav, they're wounding all 4 up, unless they're Grav Cannon Centurions, you're not rerolling the wounds, so it's not terrible. Like, the Grav bike spam list that everybody's been talking about on the internet is good, but I think, you know, properly played, the Ovessa Star can counter that pretty easily just with its range advantages.
And how about you, Matt? Is there anything, you know, since Nova going to Battle for Salvation? Now, I know Battle for Salvation was 2,000 points, and I know you added an extra unit of Hawks. But is there anything at your 1850 that you feel is real critical with your playstyle, which is a very exacting, very down-to-the-wire playstyle? I mean, you don't play the game, you don't play 1 through 4. Every single one of your moves ever watching you is always setting yourself up for winning the game of 5, 6, and 7, which is why you have so much success at tournaments. You never play for the big knockout punch. You're always playing for the actual win and playing the mission. So with that in mind, is there any changes you want different in your list?
I think one thing that I would have done, and this is a small thing, and it's based off of logistics more than anything else, is take a 6th Hawk. I don't have the model, so I had to borrow Eric Hoger's for BFS, which was useful because it let me win. So yeah, I think I would drop some stuff to get the 6th Hawk. I question the Wraith Knight sometimes because there are a lot of points, 480 points for both Wraith Knights, so I could get some other stuff for it. And so I'm curious to see whether or not that would be worth it. But Nick Nanavati can tell you that against Demon Princes, it's pretty useful. The Strength 10 can drop Princes out of the sky if it's guided pretty well. And if you get charged and you're in area terrain, you can punch them in the face before they can do anything because they don't have grenades. So I question them more than anything else, but they are pretty useful against some of the more popular armies out there.
Okay. I also noticed in this particular game you were down your pretty Wraith Knight.
I was.
What happened to him?
Well, my it's funny because people talk about hurting that pretty Wraith Knight. If you've seen it, you know why. But somebody actually went ahead and did that at BFS, and it was this guy.
I don't know what you're talking about. Last time I checked, it challenged me to a fist fight and lost.
I got you.
Well, with all that said, is there anything else you guys have you want to add out for the community?
Great game.
Yeah, good game.
Well, maybe we'll have to get another on-camera rematch soon. Sure. Most important now, I want to thank you guys for coming out, and I want to thank Kevin McNally, who is currently off camera, still doing the camera work. He did all the camera work for this event, or for this particular thing. He'll be doing our camera work in the future.
I want to give a shout out to my wife. She's always moral support. There you go.